Hello and welcome to Wolfman Gaming. This is my Metro Exodus, the Two Kernels DLC. It's just a scratch trophy / achievement walkthrough. And this is mission 1, also known as that I have dubbed Extermination. Because I took a quick peek online and I couldn't find any official names for these missions, so I have made up my own. And I think that Extermination is quite a fitting title for this first episode. Because you are playing as Colonel Slava Klebnikov. I don't know if Slava is his real first name, it might be Vladislav, but they refer to him as Slava in this DLC. And we are part of a cleanup crew that's trying to eliminate this fungus that has invaded the metro of Novosibirsk. Because you might remember in the main game that you ended the game in Novosibirsk and we found a little boy called Kirill. And wow, quite heavy on the R there. We found a boy called Kirill, and Slava is his dad. And in the main game he talked about how his dad was missing. He went out on a mission and didn't come back. And in this DLC you find out what happened to him. And it's called the Two Kernels because in cutscenes Miller shows up. And we get to follow some of the things he got up to while Artyom was heading to get the cure for Anna. But in this DLC, I said this walkthrough is about getting the It's Just a Scratch trophy or achievement if you're playing on Xbox. And It's Just a Scratch is unlocked by beating this entire DLC on at least normal difficulty without using a medkit. And on normal, it's not super difficult to do. The hardest part is actually this first level. Because you saw the worm that came out of the water and attacked me. That is a forced hit. You can see that there is a small red outlining on my visor. Because I have taken some damage from that forced hit. I don't completely agree with that. Because in this mission there are mainly two types of enemies. Or there are three types. There are these small worms that don't pose a big threat, and there are also those big worms that I think look a bit more like centipedes than worms actually. And some of these worms spit at you. And some of them just pop out and try to lunge at you. They try to hit you. The ones that try to hit you don't pose a threat almost at all. Unless you get really close. But they will come out, they'll take a whip at you, they miss and they fuck off. The ones that spit, on the other hand, come out, they spit some mucus with smaller worms in it at you. And then they fuck off. Some of them can be evaded by moving back or ducking down. You see, there was a worm trying to get out and I just fried his ass. But sometimes it feels like whether you manage to take out one of those worms before he spits is completely random. Because I got stuck on actually the last worm in this one, and I struggled a bit before I managed to get past him because I get hit twice in this level. And that's how I realized you can take 3 hits when you play this on normal. The 4th hit will kill you, and if you use a medkit at any point during this DLC, you will negate the It's Just a Scratch trophy. So be very careful. On normal, you can quick save whenever you want, and I suggest you utilize that ability as much as you can. And this DLC actually is, or actually enlightened me to the fact that sometimes I'm an idiot. Which is a very self-conscious thing to say. But I'm gonna elaborate, as I do in these walkthroughs. Because I did my first playthrough of this game, I think it was last week. Or my first playthrough of this expansion. And going in, I hadn't played Metro actually since I recorded my walkthrough for the main game. So it's been a few months ago. And I have plowed through a bunch of different games in the time in between. And I started playing the expansion and tried to get through it on... and get it's just a scratch. I thought like, I'll try it on my first playthrough. See how hard it is. And I got wrecked. I took such a beating. It was insane. I was on the ass end of the ass kicking, and I realized pretty quickly that, wow, I'm not gonna be able to do this. At least not on my first playthrough. I'm gonna have to play through this game, or this expansion, a few times. Try to learn where all the worms pop out. But I struggled on. I persevered, so to speak, and started to prosper, got quite far into the DLC. But I was thinking about it. By the way, there is a worm to the left, a spitter worm, so back off. And you see he spits at the door. You will not take any damage, and then he pisses off. But either way, I trudged on through this expansion, cursing and generally doing a mess of things. And when I got towards the end, suddenly it dawned on me. I was 2/3 into this expansion. There are 4 missions. In this walkthrough I will cover mission 1, or level 1, 3 and 4. Level 2 is just exposition. There are no enemies, it's just to progress the story. So I have excluded that from the walkthrough. Also, here is another worm that's gonna pop out of that pipe. But either way, towards the end of mission 3, suddenly it dawned on me. Because I started thinking, where the hell is my heads-up display? And I started thinking about it. And I started doing some research. I realized I have no heads-up display. I cannot save my game manually. And I went into Google and did some research and realized when I googled it, because I couldn't change the difficulty either, and I thought it was really weird. And then I realized that this expansion, when you start it up the first time, it mirrors the setting you have your main game set to. And if you followed my Metro Exodus guide for the main game, I said that I had started playing it on Ranger Hardcore. Here's another worm, by the way, and I think I get hit by this one. Looking through this video, I realized that maybe if you pump your flamethrower and move quickly to the left, hopefully his spit will miss you. See, I took a hit right there. So, either way, the point I was getting to was that I had been going through this on Ranger Hardcore without knowing it. First, I just thought that I sucked, since I hadn't played it in a few months. But then it became a war of attrition. It became a matter of principle, like, I've gotten this far through the expansion. So I'm gonna get through the rest, but I'm gonna use my medkits because I have to, and I've used them already. And it wasn't super hard, and that's why I know that the strategies I use, especially in episode 2 of this walkthrough, that they work 100% because they were tried and tested and successful on Ranger Hardcore. But it's a fun expansion. And I really love, even though I'm not a big fan of these worms, I really like the aesthetic of this first level. Because this is so heavily inspired by the Alien movies. It's insane. Because this is the shit that aliens do. If you have seen the Alien movies, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, it's about time you do. Because most of them are good. No, wait, let me rephrase that. The first one is good. I think the first one is a bit too long and not a very popular opinion to have. But I think it's a bit too long for its own good. The second one is my favorite, directed by James Cameron. It's a lot more action based, a bit less of a horror movie than the first movie. But I think it has a better flow, and either way, go watch them. First we'll finish this expansion and then go watch the Alien movies. That's your homework. And also, throughout this mission, this is quite important. Loot through everything. Because you may have seen that I looted through a corpse and I picked up an upgrade for my flamethrower. You will pick up upgrades throughout this mission, and there is... I think there's one during the last mission. You will get bigger fuel tanks, you will get better what's called better safety valves or something, because right now the valve on your flamethrower is leaking, so you pump up the pressure and it will sink over time. It will slowly leak out of the tank and you have to keep the pressure up so you can fire it. It's a pneumatic weapon. But you will get airtight valves, and on the last mission, this is actually something I kept an eye out for when I was recording this. When you get to the last mission, you have a self-refilling air tank that keeps the pressure up. When it starts to go down, it will slowly increase again. By the way, here is another expansion. I think it's the medium fuel tank, so you don't have to reload as often. Because that is something I'm not a fan of when it comes to these pneumatic weapons, that you have to pump them up. I realize that's how they work. In this universe, you cannot just change the clip. Let's see. Yeah, airtight pneumatic system. And there was something I was thinking about that I was gonna say. Yes. You saw that I picked up some medkits. And whenever I have picked up medkits throughout this, the best is to just stay away from them. I pick them up mostly by reflex, because if I see loot, I pick it up. But whenever you get to a workbench, I would recommend that if you have any medkits in your inventory, dismantle them. Because you use a medkit by pressing up on the D-pad. And it can be quite easy if you're in a stressful situation that your thumb slips and you accidentally press up. And suddenly you have used a medkit and you have negated the trophy. And that is not very fun, now is it? So whenever you get to a workbench, any medkits in your inventory, always dismantle them. You have no use for them, because we are going through this the hard way. And your health, of course, refills in between missions. I think there is another worm out here as well. Yes. As soon as you open that door, move back and to the right. The very instant he kicks the door open. Because that will make him miss you with his spit. And there was something else I was thinking of. What the hell was that? Maybe it will come to me. But I must say, these small worms that you see from time to time, you may not be able to hear it now because of my incessant chattering. But when you fire them up with your flamethrower, they burst. Or maybe I should say explode. With this really wet sound. It's hard to describe, but it sounds fascinatingly disgusting. It's one of those sounds, if you hear it, you'll know exactly what I mean. They sound almost like wet popcorn or something. And the way to trigger these worms, this is quite important information. Maybe I should mention this earlier than almost 17 minutes into this video. The worms are triggered by trigger points. They don't go on a timer. You have to step on, let's call it like an invisible tripwire to make them pop out. I actually tried like standing around for a little bit, see if it was maybe a timer, but as far as my research has shown, they are completely triggered by trigger points. That when you reach a certain point or reach and breach a certain point, they are programmed to pop out. But this shouldn't present too much of a problem for you, as long as you follow this guide and see. If you see a hole in the wall, that means a big worm is probably gonna come out of it. And most of the time it can be a really good thing to start just torching that hole and moving towards it, because that will make the worm move straight into a big shower of fiery flame straight out of hell. And always keep an eye on your pressure meter, and of course on your fuel tank that's down in the bottom right corner. Because you do not want to end up in a situation where a worm pops out. Wow. That was a bit clumsy on my behalf. Kind of walked straight into that one, but got lucky. And here we have a little mid-level checkpoint. Not exactly mid-level, because we are past the halfway point. And this is one of those parts that I probably could have trimmed out. But this guy is part of the Extermination squad. And you will have a little talk with him. He's gonna whine about the fact that his flamethrower doesn't hold the pressure, that something is leaking. He will give you some ammunition, and we can go on our way. And as I said, I will not be covering mission 2 at all, because that is, I think that mission is quite uninteresting, because it tells the story. You see a little bit of Slava and Kirill, and you get some information about what's going on this station. I know that Kirill talked about it in the main game, that they were running low on supplies, and that is true. and you will see the entire story unfold, but I don't want to spoil anything. I just want to help you get through this game and unlock that sweet, sweet trophy. And a little tip for mission 2. I don't know, there is a trophy in this game called Duty and Conscience. You will be presented with a moral choice related to a guy called Petrovich in the second mission. I think that trophy is story related. I forgot to look that up before I started narrating this video. I think it is story related. It is a moral choice you have to do. I'm not gonna go into too much detail. I'm just gonna say that it's related to Petrovich. I chose to press left on the D-pad. You get to either press right or left. Make one out of two choices. And the trophy popped for me. And as I said, I'm quite sure that it will unlock no matter what choice you make. Because it is tied into the story and it's called Duty and Conscience. It will all be very clear to you when you get to that point, but I'm trying to stay out of spoiler country right now. But if you want to be sure of unlocking that trophy, go for the left choice. That's what I did, and it triggered immediately for me. And also in this game there is a trophy called Dodge Master that I didn't manage to unlock because I was clumsy. It is related to the final boss fight, or the final fight. Could call it a boss fight. I realize now what I did wrong. So I'm gonna tell you so you won't repeat my mistake. And at the end of, you will get, I think it's 2 or 3 story related trophies that I know will pop. I can't remember the name of any of them right now. This is a bit sloppy on my side. I should have done more research before I started narrating this, I realize now, but I'll look it up before mission 2 and I can get, or before episode 2, and maybe I can get a little bit more in depth on those. But when you beat this DLC, you get a trophy called Real Colonel. And that is story related. It's for beating this expansion. And I can say after getting through this this is the big tank, by the way. In the last mission we'll get an extended tank, which is basically a gas tank. Those red tanks that you pick up. That is one of those that he more or less just straps to the flamethrower, like fuck it, there I fixed it. But it's a great thing because your flamethrower will work quite hard, especially throughout the last moments of this. And here we are, another workbench. I dismantle all my medkits. I clean my flamethrower because why not? I have supplies and or I have the chemicals and stuff you need to do it, and it never happened to me during this during these playthroughs and walkthrough recording. My flamethrower never froze up, but just for safety's sake. And there is also a bonus kicker to that. I realized that the trophies in the main game, some of them carry over to this. Because on my first playthrough, there I was cleaning my flamethrower and suddenly I unlocked a trophy called Tidy Man, which is from the main game for using 500 resources, I think, to clean your weapons. And suddenly it popped. So that carries over, and I think also it stacks. If you die, which I did during the last fight. Because I went in, tried to clean my rifle, went to the last fight and died. A few times. And then I just said fuck it and went into the fight. But it stacks. Every time you clean your weapon, if you die in between, it stacks. See right there, one of them popped out of the water and I backed up a little bit and crouched. So he spit straight into the railing and you're safe. Which is a really nice thing. And I was starting to get a little bit nervous. Because when I got this far, as I said, I used a quick save quite a lot. And I did die a few times on some of these worms, especially the last one you face off against in this expansion. But then I thought of a new way of approaching him and it worked great. It worked first attempt. And that is how I noticed that it feels very random whether you manage to take these out instantly or not, especially the spitters. Because I did maybe 10, 12 attempts at him. I tried different strategies to try to run past him, slide beneath him, trigger him and retreat. And none of it worked. And I tried just going all in Sylvester Stallone, flame him in the face, and he just said fuck it and spit in my face either way. By the way, another worm will trigger when you go down these stairs. So go down and trigger him. There he comes. And we move up the stairs. I don't know if he's one of them that tries to take a stab at you or if he's one that spits. But if you retreat back up the stairs, he will not hurt you. Also, throughout this level, you might see a lot of static. This place is radiated up the ass. But it does not hurt you. The radiation is just there. I think I said in my walkthrough for the main game that it was irradiated, but I think that's when we have cleaned up the radiation. So this place is jam-packed with radiation. Your Geiger counter is crackling and everything looks static from time to time. But it doesn't hurt you. And the flames, if you move through the through a place that is burning, it doesn't seem to hurt you. It might hurt you a little bit, but if you're going for it's just scratch, because it says in the loading screens in between that you're basically impervious to flames when you're wearing this protective suit that Klebnikov is. But I wouldn't rely 100% on that. So whenever you're burning, you may have seen throughout this mission that sometimes I set things ablaze and I walk over to the other way. Because I like to wait for the flames to die down so I wouldn't take any unnecessary damage. And this is the worm I was talking about. What I did here, it can be a little bit hard to see, but what I did and what worked for me, first of all, make a quick save. And I move over to the right side of this walkway. I tried to trigger him and see if I could run down the stairs. Didn't work that well. But what I did is go up to the right side of this railing. Move over to right. As soon as he comes out, move over to the left. And shoot him in the face. He killed me 10 or 12 times. And suddenly, the first time I tried that, to move, because I thought that maybe if I move the very last second, his spit will go over my shoulder. But when I moved to the left, in behind that pipe, and shot, he insta-died. And I thought it was really weird. But if you do that, you move to the left just as he tries to spit. His spit will miss you. And we are now getting close to the end of this mission. This is also the longest mission in the expansion. And as I said towards the beginning of this is absolutely the hardest one. If you can beat this without using a medkit, you're absolutely set for the rest of this expansion. Because in the second mission, we're gonna do a whole lot of camping. And in the third mission, we don't have any enemies with distance attacks like these worms. And here is a scripted fight that's gonna come now. Also feel free to pick up any fuel you find along the way. It's always good, and I think it carries over to the last mission. But resources, ammo was never a problem throughout this. And I was quite liberal with my ammo, even on Ranger Hardcore. Mostly because I didn't know I was playing on Ranger Hardcore, and I always had like 800 or 900 fuel. And I love this cutscene. We just grab one of his what's called mandibles and go completely Godzilla on his ass. Like in the Godzilla movie that came out a few years ago, was it like 2012 or something? Boring ass movie for the most part. I went to see it in the cinema with my girlfriend, and a lot of time was spent with boring people talking about boring things. But towards the end, when you see Godzilla and he's fighting those two mutants, suddenly it's all worth it. And when he grabs one of them and just forces his jaws open and vomits blue fire down his throat, I was ecstatic. I think I was even applauding in the cinema, cheering him on like, yeah, kick his ass, Godzilla. But either way, here we are at the end of mission 1, as I said, that I've called Extermination. But I want to thank you very much for watching, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of this walkthrough, and I will see you again in my next video. So until next time, this is the Wolfman signing off.